Three identical cowboys surround Eleanor by the horse trough. Jake's voice is rough. "I am asking if you will marry me." Cole adds, "Can you accept all three of us?" Her heart races. 3 brothers. 1 bride. 1 impossible decision. Before we dive in, comment where you are watching from and do not forget to click subscribe. The stagecoach lurched violently as it rounded the final bend into Copper Ridge, throwing Eleanor hard against the worn leather seat. Dust clouds rose thick and choking through the window as the horses slowed their frantic pace. She pressed her gloved hand against her chest, feeling the rapid hammering of her heart beneath the modest gray traveling dress. 23 years old, and she had never been more terrified in her entire life. The advertisement had seemed so simple back in Boston. Respectable rancher seeks wife, must be of good character and willing spirit. References required. She had written back immediately, her hands trembling as she penned the letter by candlelight in the boarding house where she worked 16 hours a day scrubbing floors. Anything had to be better than that life of endless labor and loneliness. The response came 3 weeks later. A brief letter in strong, neat handwriting. "Come to Copper Ridge. The Triple Bar Ranch. Ask anyone in town for directions. Travel expenses enclosed." She had stared at the bills tucked inside the envelope, more money than she had seen in months. Her fingers had traced over the signature at the bottom. Jake Hollister. The name meant nothing to her then. It meant everything now. The stagecoach jerked to a stop in front of a weathered building with a faded sign that read, "General Store." Eleanor gathered her single carpet bag, the sum total of her earthly possessions, and stepped down onto the dusty street. The afternoon sun beat down mercilessly, nothing like the cool gray skies of Boston. She squinted against the harsh light, one hand shading her eyes as she looked around the small frontier town. A few wooden buildings lined the main street. A saloon with piano music drifting through the swinging doors. A bank with bars on the windows. Men in dusty work clothes and wide-brimmed hats moved along the wooden sidewalks, their eyes turning toward her with open curiosity. She felt her cheeks flush hot. She was clearly a stranger here, an outsider in her city clothes and pale skin that had never known hard sun. Her heart pounded faster. What had she done? What kind of madness had possessed her to travel 2,000 miles to marry a man she had never met, never even seen a photograph of? The stagecoach driver set her trunk down with a heavy thud beside her. "That everything, miss?" His weathered face showed concern. She nodded, not trusting her voice. He tipped his hat. "Good luck to you, then." The stage rattled away, leaving her standing alone in the middle of the street with her meager belongings and a heart full of doubts. Eleanor took a deep breath and walked toward the general store. The wooden steps creaked under her feet. Inside, the dim interior smelled of coffee, tobacco, and dried goods. An older woman with steel-gray hair looked up from behind the counter, her sharp eyes taking in every detail of Eleanor's appearance. "Help you?" The woman's voice was not unkind, but it was not particularly warm either. Eleanor cleared her throat. "I am looking for the Triple Bar Ranch. I was told to ask in town for directions." The woman's eyebrows rose slightly. "You must be the mail-order bride. Word travels fast in a small town." Eleanor felt her face burn with embarrassment, but she lifted her chin. "Yes, I am expected." The woman studied her for a long moment, something unreadable passing across her weathered features. Then she nodded toward the window. "The Triple Bar is about 10 miles northwest of here. Follow the main road out of town. Take the fork to the left when you reach the old oak tree. You cannot miss it." 10 miles. Eleanor's heart sank. That is quite a distance. The woman's expression softened just slightly. "The Hollister boys usually come into town on Saturdays for supplies. You could wait." Hollister boys? Plural? Eleanor felt confusion wash over her. "I thought I was corresponding with Jake Hollister." The woman's lips twitched in what might have been amusement. "You were. But Jake has 2 brothers. Triplets they are. All identical. Near impossible to tell them apart unless you know them well." The world seemed to tilt beneath Eleanor's feet. Triplets. 3 brothers. The advertisement had mentioned nothing about brothers, nothing about a family. She had assumed she would be marrying one man, helping him run a ranch, building a simple, quiet life. Now there were 3 of them. Her mind spun with questions, but before she could voice any of them, the door behind her burst open with such force it slammed against the wall. Eleanor whirled around, her hand flying to her throat. 3 men filled the doorway, so large they had to duck their heads to enter. And they were identical. Exactly identical. Tall, broad-shouldered, with dark hair just touching their collars, sun-bronzed skin, and eyes the color of summer sky. Each of them had to stand at least 6 feet 4 inches, maybe taller. Their muscular frames seemed to take up all the space in the small store. Eleanor's breath caught in her throat. She had never seen men like this. They moved with an easy confidence, their presence commanding without saying a word. All 3 of them stopped dead when they saw her. For a long moment, nobody spoke. Eleanor felt 6 eyes studying her with an intensity that made her skin flush hot. She could not look away. One of them, the one in the middle, stepped forward. His voice was deep, rough, sending a shiver down her spine despite the heat. "You must be Eleanor Hart." She nodded, her mouth too dry to speak. He removed his hat, holding it in large, work-roughened hands. "I am Jake Hollister. These are my brothers, Cole and Tucker. We got your telegram saying you would be arriving today." Cole, the one on the left, stepped forward as well. His eyes, the same startling blue as Jake's, swept over her face with open curiosity. "Welcome to Copper Ridge, Miss Hart." Tucker, the third brother, said nothing, but his gaze was just as intense, studying her as if trying to memorize every feature. Eleanor found her voice finally, though it came out barely above a whisper. "I did not realize there would be 3 of you." "The advertisement did not mention brothers." Jake's jaw tightened slightly. "No, it did not. I apologize for the confusion, but everything in my letters was true. The ranch needs a woman's touch, and I am in need of a wife." She noticed he said I, not we, but the weight of 3 sets of eyes on her made it impossible to think clearly. The store owner cleared her throat. "Why do not you folks take this conversation somewhere more private?" Eleanor felt Jake's hand, large and warm, settle gently on her elbow. "Let us get you to the ranch. You must be exhausted from your journey." She allowed him to guide her outside, intensely aware of his touch even through the fabric of her sleeve. Cole grabbed her trunk easily, lifting it as if it weighed nothing. Tucker held the door, his eyes never leaving her face. Outside, 3 massive horses stood tied to the hitching post. Eleanor's stomach dropped. She had ridden exactly twice in her life, both times on gentle old mares in the city park. These animals were nothing like that. They were enormous, powerful beasts that stamped and tossed their heads. Jake seemed to sense her hesitation. "Have you ridden before?" "Not much," she admitted. He nodded. "You will ride with me, then." He swung up into the saddle with easy grace, then reached down for her. His hand was steady, strong. Eleanor placed her smaller hand in his and felt herself lifted as if she weighed nothing at all. She found herself seated sideways in front of him, his arm coming around her waist to hold her secure. Her heart pounded wildly. She could feel the solid wall of his chest against her back, feel the steady rhythm of his breathing. Heat radiated from him despite the layers of clothing between them. This close, she caught his scent, leather and sage and something distinctly male that made her head spin. Cole and Tucker mounted their own horses with the same easy confidence. Cole tied her trunk to his saddle while Tucker took the lead. They moved out of town at an easy pace, and Eleanor tried desperately to calm her racing thoughts. She was pressed against a stranger, his arm wrapped possessively around her waist, riding toward a ranch with 3 identical brothers who apparently all lived together. What had seemed like a simple escape from poverty now felt impossibly complicated. But there was no going back. She had spent her last dollar on the clothes she wore. The boarding house had already rented her tiny room to someone else. Everything she owned was tied to Cole's saddle. This was her life now, for better or worse. The landscape changed as they rode, the scrubby desert giving way to rolling hills dotted with cattle. The sun began its descent toward the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and pink. Despite her anxiety, Eleanor could not help but notice the stark beauty of this wild place. Nothing like the crowded, dirty streets of Boston. Here the sky stretched endlessly, and the air tasted clean and fresh. Jake's voice rumbled close to her ear. "The ranch has been in our family for 15 years. Our parents started it, but they both passed 5 years ago. Winter fever took them both within a week of each other. It has just been the three of us since then." Eleanor felt a pang of sympathy. "I lost my parents young too. Yellow fever when I was 12. His arm tightened slightly around her waist. "Then you understand what it means to be alone in the world." She did. That understanding, that shared loss, created an unexpected connection between them. They rode in silence for a while, and Eleanor found herself relaxing slightly into Jake's embrace. His body was solid, warm, reassuring. She felt safer than she had in years. Finally, they crested a hill and she saw it. The Triple Bar Ranch spread out in the valley below. A large main house, weathered but well-maintained, with a wide porch wrapping around the front. Behind it stood a barn, corrals, and several smaller outbuildings. Cattle dotted the hillsides, and she could see horses moving in a fenced pasture. It was bigger than she had imagined, more substantial. This was not some hardscrabble homestead barely scratching by. This was a real working ranch. As they rode down the hill, Eleanor noticed something else. There was not a single woman anywhere. No wash hanging on lines, no garden plot, no curtains in the windows. Just 3 men living rough. Jake seemed to read her thoughts. "We have been managing on our own, but it has been hard. None of us can cook worth a damn. The house is in rough shape. We spend all our time working the cattle and the horses. There is no time for anything else." They came to a stop in front of the house. Jake dismounted first, then reached up for Eleanor. His hands spanned her waist easily as he lifted her down. For just a moment they stood close, his hands still on her waist, her palms resting on his forearms for balance. Their eyes met and held. Eleanor felt something shift inside her chest, a warmth spreading that had nothing to do with the desert heat. Then Tucker cleared his throat loudly and the moment broke. Jake stepped back, releasing her. His brothers had already dismounted, and now all 3 of them stood there, watching her, waiting. Eleanor felt the weight of that attention like a physical touch. These were not boys. They were men, hard-working, powerful men who had carved a life out of this harsh land, and somehow, impossibly, she was supposed to fit into their world. Jake gestured toward the house. "Let me show you inside." She followed him up the porch steps, Cole and Tucker trailing behind with her trunk. The moment Jake opened the door, Eleanor understood what he had meant about the house being in rough shape. The interior was clean enough, but completely devoid of any warmth or personality. Bare wooden floors, simple furniture, everything functional but harsh. No rugs, no curtains, no pictures on the walls. It looked exactly like what it was, a place where 3 bachelors ate and slept between long days of brutal work. "This is the main room," Jake said, his voice echoing slightly in the empty space. "Kitchen is through there. We have 4 bedrooms upstairs. You will have your own room, of course. We respect propriety." Eleanor felt a confusing mix of relief and disappointment at those words. She was here to marry this man. Was she not? But apparently that was not happening immediately. As if reading her confusion, Cole spoke up. His voice was gentler than Jake's, though equally deep. "We thought you might want some time to get settled before we make any formal arrangements. No need to rush into anything." Tucker added, his first word since they had met. "You can decide if this life suits you. If we suit you." Their consideration should have made her feel better. Instead, it made everything more uncertain. She had traveled 2,000 miles expecting to marry a rancher named Jake Hollister. Now she stood in a house with 3 identical men, none of them pushing her toward the altar, all of them watching her with an intensity that made her skin flush hot and her breath come short. What exactly was she supposed to do now? Jake carried her trunk upstairs while Eleanor followed, acutely aware of Cole and Tucker remaining below, their presence filling the house even from a distance. The stairs creaked under their feet. At the top, a narrow hallway led to several doors. Jake opened the first one. "This will be your room." It was simple, but larger than any space she had ever called her own. A bed with a plain quilt, a dresser, a small table with a wash basin and pitcher, A single window looked out over the front of the ranch toward the distant hills. Jake set her trunk at the foot of the bed. I know it is not much. She shook her head quickly. It is more than enough. Thank you. He stood there for a moment, his hat still in his hands. Then he said, I should explain something. About my brothers and me. Eleanor waited, her heart pounding. We are close. Closer than most siblings. Our whole lives, people could not tell us apart. Even our own mother sometimes mixed us up. We learned early to depend on each other, to work as a unit. When our parents died, it just made that bond stronger. He paused, seeming to struggle for words. When I put that advertisement in the paper, I did it for all of us. We all agreed the ranch needed a woman, someone to make this place a home instead of just a work camp. But I was the one who wrote the letters. I was the one who made the offer. His blue eyes met hers directly. If you agree to marry me, you marry me, not them. But they will be here. They are my family. Eleanor's mind spun. She managed to nod. I understand. Do you? Jake stepped closer. She could smell the sage scent of him again, see the faint lines around his eyes from squinting into the sun. Because I need you to know what you are agreeing to. This is not an easy life. The work is hard. The winters are brutal. There are weeks where we barely see town. You will be the only woman on this ranch, living with 3 men. Something in his voice, in the way he looked at her, made Eleanor's breath catch. There was a warning there, but also something else. Something heated that made her skin flush. She lifted her chin, drawing on reserves of courage she had not known she possessed. I did not come here expecting easy, Mr. Hollister. I came here because I am tired of barely surviving, of scrubbing floors until my hands bleed for pennies. I came here because your letters promised partnership, a chance to build something real. I am not afraid of hard work. His expression shifted, something like respect flickering in those blue eyes. Good. Because we will work you hard, but we will treat you fair. You will have everything you need. Cole and Tucker and I, we take care of what is ours. The way he said ours sent a shiver down her spine that had nothing to do with cold. Eleanor felt heat creep up her neck, felt her pulse quicken. This man, this stranger, was looking at her like she was already his, like she belonged to him. And God help her, some part of her responded to that possessive intensity. Some part of her that had been lonely and afraid for so long wanted to belong to someone, to be claimed and protected and cared for. Jake seemed to see that response in her face. His jaw tightened, and he stepped back deliberately, putting distance between them. Get some rest. Dinner will be in about an hour. I will call you when it is ready. He left, closing the door quietly behind him. Eleanor sank onto the bed, her legs suddenly unsteady. Her heart raced, and her skin felt too hot. What was happening to her? She had known this man for less than 2 hours, and already her body responded to his presence in ways that shocked and frightened her. She was a decent woman, properly raised despite her poverty. She should not be feeling these strange sensations. This pull toward a man who was still essentially a stranger. But she did feel it. And not just toward Jake. All 3 brothers affected her the same way. Their size, their strength, their commanding presence. The way they moved with such easy confidence. The way they looked at her with those startling blue eyes. She had never experienced anything like it. In Boston, men had barely noticed her. She had been just another poor girl in a boarding house, invisible and insignificant. Here, she felt seen. More than seen. She felt consumed by their attention. Eleanor stood and moved to the window, trying to calm her racing thoughts. Below, she could see Jake and his brothers working near the barn. They moved in perfect synchronization, passing tools back and forth without words, their movements fluid and coordinated. Watching them work was mesmerizing. She noticed details now that she had missed before. The way their shirts stretched across broad shoulders. The play of muscle in their forearms as they worked. The casual strength with which they handled heavy equipment. Heat flooded through her, and she pressed her cool palms against her flushed cheeks. What was wrong with her? She should be thinking about practical matters. About how she would manage a household for 3 men. About whether she could truly go through with marrying Jake. Instead, all she could think about was the feeling of his arm around her waist during the ride, the warmth of his body against her back, the rough timbre of his voice when he said, "We take care of what is ours." A knock on the door made her jump. It opened slightly, and Tucker's voice called through. "Dinner is ready, Miss Hart." She took a deep breath, smoothing her skirts and checking her reflection in the small mirror above the dresser. Her cheeks were still flushed, her eyes too bright. But there was nothing to be done about it. She had to go down and face them. The kitchen was attached to the main room, separated only by a wide doorway. A large wooden table dominated the space, and all three brothers stood when she entered. The gesture surprised her. In the boarding house, no one had ever stood for her arrival. She was just the help. Here, these rough ranchers treated her like a lady. "Sit," Jake said, pulling out a chair. She sat, and he pushed the chair in gently before taking his own seat directly across from her. Cole sat to her left, Tucker to her right. They hemmed her in, their large frames making her feel small and delicate in comparison. The meal was simple, but substantial. Steak, beans, and bread. Jake had not been exaggerating about their cooking skills. Everything was edible, but just barely. No seasoning. Everything slightly overdone. Eleanor made a mental note of the improvements she could make. As they ate, the brothers asked her questions. About Boston, about her journey west, about her life before. She answered carefully, not mentioning the true depths of her poverty, or the sometimes frightening loneliness of her existence in the city. She tried to present herself as capable and resilient, someone who could handle this new life. In turn, they told her about the ranch, about the cattle drives and the horse breeding operation they were trying to build, about the dangers they faced from rustlers and harsh weather, about their hopes to expand, to make the Triple Bar one of the most successful ranches in the territory. Eleanor found herself fascinated. These were not simple cowboys. They were businessmen in their own rough way, thinking strategically about their future. They spoke with passion about their work, about the land, about the life they were building. And they included her in these discussions, asking her opinions, valuing her input. It was intoxicating. When the meal ended, she insisted on clearing the table despite their protests. As she worked, she felt their eyes on her, watching her move around the kitchen, learning the space. The weight of their attention made her clumsy. She nearly dropped a plate, catching it at the last second. Cole was there instantly, his hand steadying hers. "Easy." His touch sent electricity up her arm. She looked up and found his face inches from hers, those blue eyes intense. "Thank you," she whispered. He held her gaze for a long moment before releasing her hand and stepping back. The room felt too small, too hot. Tucker cleared his throat. "We usually do the washing up. You must be tired from your journey." She shook her head. "I am fine. I would prefer to stay busy." Jake leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with an unreadable expression. "Then we will help." For the next hour, they worked together in the small kitchen. Eleanor washed while the brothers dried and put away. It should have been awkward. 4 people crowded into the small space. Instead, it felt right somehow. Natural. They moved around each other with easy coordination, the brothers anticipating what she needed before she asked. When everything was clean and put away, Eleanor felt exhaustion finally catching up to her. The long journey, the emotional upheaval, the constant awareness of 3 powerful men watching her every move. All of it crashed over her suddenly. She swayed slightly, catching herself on the edge of the table. Jake was at her side immediately, his hand on her elbow. "Bed. Now." His commanding tone should have annoyed her. Instead, it made her feel cared for, protected. She nodded, too tired to argue. All 3 brothers walked her to the stairs. At the bottom, Jake paused. "Sleep well, Eleanor. Tomorrow we will show you around the ranch properly." She climbed the stairs slowly, feeling their eyes on her until she reached the top and disappeared into her room. Once alone, Eleanor changed into her nightgown with trembling hands. The simple white cotton fell to her ankles, modest and proper. She braided her dark hair and washed her face in the basin. Then she sat on the edge of the bed, staring out the window at the darkening landscape. This was her life now. This ranch, these three identical brothers who watched her with such intensity. She should be terrified. Should be planning how to escape, how to get back to Boston somehow. But she was not terrified. She was exhilarated. For the first time in years, she felt alive. Felt like maybe, possibly, she had found somewhere she could belong. The soft sound of boots on the stairs made her tense. A gentle knock on her door. "Eleanor?" Jake's voice, low and rough. She stood, tightening the belt on her worn robe, and opened the door a crack. He stood in the hallway, still fully dressed. "I wanted to make sure you had everything you needed." She nodded. "I am fine. Thank you." He studied her face in the dim light from the oil lamp she had lit. "You did good today. Better than I expected." The compliment warmed her. She found herself smiling slightly. "I am tougher than I look." His eyes traced over her face, lingering on her smile. "I am starting to see that." They stood there, the door between them, neither moving. Eleanor became acutely aware of how thin her nightgown was, how little separated them. Her heart began to race again. Jake must have seen something in her expression because his jaw tightened. He took a step back. "Good night, Eleanor. Sleep well." He turned and walked away, his boots heavy on the wooden floor. Eleanor closed the door and leaned against it, her heart pounding. What was she doing? She barely knew this man. Barely knew any of them. But her body did not seem to care about logic or propriety. Her body responded to Jake with an intensity that shocked her. She climbed into bed, pulling the quilt up to her chin. The sheets smelled of sun and sage. Clean, but impersonal. She wondered if that would change over time. If this room would start to feel like hers. If this house would start to feel like home. Sleep came slowly, her mind spinning with images of three identical brothers and their intense blue eyes. When she finally drifted off, her dreams were confused and heated. Strong hands and deep voices, and the feeling of being surrounded, protected, claimed. She woke once in the deep night, disoriented. For a moment she could not remember where she was. Then it all came back. The ranch, the brothers, her new life. Through the thin walls she could hear movement. Deep voices speaking quietly. She could not make out the words, but she recognized the cadence of the brothers talking among themselves. Were they talking about her? The thought sent heat through her body. She pressed her hands to her flushed cheeks and tried to will herself back to sleep. Tomorrow she would have to face them again. Would have to continue navigating this strange new world where she was one woman living with three powerful men. Would have to decide if she truly wanted to marry Jake, to tie her life to his forever. Part of her whispered that she should run, should find a way back to civilization before she got in too deep. But a larger part of her, the part that had been lonely and afraid for so many years, whispered something different. Whispered that maybe, just maybe, she had finally found where she was meant to be. Even if it was complicated. Even if it was overwhelming. Even if it meant learning to navigate the dangerous attraction she felt toward not just one brother, but somehow, impossibly, all three. Eleanor drifted back to sleep with that thought. Her dreams once again filled with blue eyes and strong hands, and the promise of something she did not yet have words for. Morning came with brilliant sunlight streaming through her window. Eleanor woke disoriented, the unfamiliar room confusing her for a moment before memory returned. The ranch, the brothers, her new life. She dressed quickly in her second-best dress, a simple brown cotton that was practical if not pretty. There was no mirror large enough to see her full reflection, but she pinned her dark hair up neatly and pinched her cheeks to bring some color to them. The smell of coffee and bacon drifted up from below. Her stomach growled, reminding her she'd eaten little the day before, too nervous to manage more than a few bites. She descended the stairs carefully, the unfamiliar house still strange to navigate. Voices drifted from the kitchen. The brothers were already up, already working. She paused at the bottom of the stairs, listening. That was Jake's voice, she thought. Deeper than the others, more commanding. Then Cole, slightly gentler. Tucker, she had noticed, spoke the least, but when he did, his words carried weight. She took a breath and entered the kitchen. All three brothers turned toward her immediately. "Good morning." Jake's eyes swept over her, taking in every detail. His gaze was so intense it made her breath catch. "Morning," she managed. "Sleep well?" Cole asked. He was at the stove, managing what looked like an attempt at scrambled eggs. She nodded. "Very well, thank you." Tucker pulled out a chair for her. The gesture was so courtly, so unexpected from these rough ranchers, that it made her smile. She sat, and suddenly they were all moving around her, bringing her coffee, setting food before her, making sure she had everything she needed. It was overwhelming in the best possible way. "She is not made of glass, brothers." Jake's voice held amusement. "She can serve herself." But none of them stopped their attentive service. Eleanor ate slowly, very aware of their eyes on her. The food was better than last night's dinner, she noted. They are learning. Or trying to, at least. When the meal was finished, Jake pushed back from the table. "Ready to see the ranch properly?" She nodded, excitement sparking through her nervousness. They spent the morning showing her everything. The barn with its clean stalls and sweet smell of hay. The horses in the corral. Beautiful animals that Cole explained they were breeding for both work and sale. The cattle grazing on the hillsides. The chicken coop that desperately needed a woman's attention. Everywhere they went, the brothers pointed things out, explained their operation, included her in their plans. And everywhere they went, Eleanor felt their presence. 3 large men surrounding her, their attention focused entirely on her. It was intoxicating and terrifying in equal measure. By midday, the sun beat down mercilessly. Eleanor felt sweat trickling down her back, her dress clinging uncomfortably. They had stopped by the horse trough, and she gratefully accepted the ladle of cool water Jake offered. As she drank, she looked up to find all 3 brothers watching her. The intensity in their eyes made her freeze mid-sip. Jake broke the silence first. "We need to talk about expectations, about what happens next." Her heart began to race. She set down the ladle with a trembling hand. "All right." Cole spoke next. "We want you to stay, Eleanor. All of us do. But we need to know what you want." Tucker added quietly, "This only works if you are willing, if you choose to be here." She looked between the 3 identical faces, seeing subtle differences now that she had spent time with them. Jake's jaw was slightly squarer. Cole's eyes held more warmth. Tucker's mouth was set in a more serious line. But they all looked at her with the same intensity, the same want. "What exactly are you asking me?" Her voice came out barely above a whisper. Jake stepped closer. "I am asking if you will marry me. If you will become my wife. Make this your home. Help us build something real here. And we," Cole gestured to include his brothers, "we are asking if you can accept all 3 of us as your family. If you can handle living with us, depending on us, letting us take care of you." Eleanor's mind spun. They were offering her everything she had come west hoping to find. Security, purpose, belonging. But they were also offering something more. Something she did not fully understand yet but felt in every racing beat of her heart. 3 men who looked at her like she was precious. 3 men who seemed to want to surround her, protect her, claim her. "Yes," she heard herself say. The word came out strong, despite her trembling hands. "I will marry you, Jake. I will stay." Something passed between the 3 brothers, a look she could not quite interpret. Then Jake smiled, a slow, devastating smile that made her knees weak. "Good." The single word held so much promise, so much intensity, that Eleanor felt heat flood through her entire body. She had just agreed to marry a man she barely knew, to live with 3 identical brothers who made her feel things she had never experienced before. She should be terrified. Instead, she felt like she was exactly where she was meant to be, even if she did not yet understand what that meant. Even if the way they looked at her made her burn. Even if every instinct told her this was going to change her in ways she could not yet imagine. The afternoon sun beat down on the four of them standing by the horse trough, and Eleanor knew with absolute certainty that her life would never be the same. And for the first time in years, she was not afraid of what came next. She was ready for it. Ready for them. Ready for whatever this strange new life would bring. That evening, the house felt different. Lighter somehow, as if Eleanor's acceptance had lifted a weight none of them had realized they were carrying. She worked in the kitchen alongside the brothers, teaching them how to properly season a stew, laughing when Cole added too much salt and they had to start over. The sound of her laughter seemed to fill every corner of the house, chasing away years of masculine silence. Jake watched her from the doorway, his arms crossed, a small smile playing at his lips. She fit here. He had known it the moment he saw her standing in the general store, looking lost and determined in equal measure. But seeing her now, moving confidently through his kitchen, teasing his brothers, that knowing settled deeper. This woman was meant to be theirs. His, he corrected himself. She was meant to be his wife. But watching Tucker hand her a wooden spoon and Cole lean close to smell the stew she was stirring, Jake felt something shift in his chest. The lines were already blurring. They had always shared everything. The three of them. The ranch, the work, the dreams for the future. Could they share this too? Could they share her? The thought should have been wrong, should have filled him with jealous rage. Instead, it felt right in a way he could not explain, and did not want to examine too closely. Eleanor turned and caught him watching. Her cheeks flushed pink, but she held his gaze. Dinner will be ready soon. You should wash up. He nodded and pushed off the door frame. Tucker, Cole, with me. The three brothers headed outside to the pump, leaving Eleanor alone in the kitchen. The moment they were outside, Cole turned to Jake. You saw it too. Jake did not pretend to misunderstand. I saw it. Tucker spoke quietly. She feels it with all of us. Not just you. Jake ran his hands through his hair, water dripping from his fingers. I know. What are we going to do about it? Cole's voice was careful. What do you want to do about it? Jake looked between his brothers. These two men who had been by his side since before they were born. They had never competed, never fought over anything important. Their bond ran too deep for that. She came here to marry me. That has not changed. But if she wants all of us, Tucker's voice held a question. Then we figure it out, Jake finished, together, like we figure out everything. Cole let out a breath he seemed to have been holding. You are sure? Jake thought about Eleanor's face when all three of them surrounded her, the way her breath quickened, her pupils dilated, the way she leaned into their attention like a flower toward the sun. I am sure. But we do this right. We do not push. We let her set the pace. Tucker nodded. Agreed. Cole grinned. When have we ever done anything separately anyway? Despite the strange situation, Jake found himself smiling. Never. They headed back inside, and Eleanor had set the table. The meal was simple but delicious. Real seasoning, properly cooked vegetables, bread that was soft instead of rock hard. She had worked magic with their pitiful supplies. After dinner, Eleanor insisted on teaching them how to properly clean a kitchen. The brothers followed her instructions with surprising obedience, these three large men taking orders from a woman half their size. She stood in the middle of the kitchen, directing them with growing confidence, and Jake felt that rightness settle deeper. When the kitchen gleamed, Eleanor stepped back with satisfaction. Much better. Tucker spoke up. Will you teach us? To cook, I mean. Properly. She looked surprised. Of course, if you want to learn. Cole moved closer. We want to learn everything you can teach us, Miss Eleanor. The way he said it made heat flood Eleanor's cheeks. Then I will teach you. Jake stepped forward. It is late. You should rest. We have a long day tomorrow. All three brothers walked her to the stairs, but this time, when she reached the top, Jake followed her. He caught her gently by the elbow just outside her door. Eleanor. She turned, heart pounding. Yes? We need to talk about the wedding. When do you want it to be? She had not thought that far ahead. Soon, she heard herself say, There is no point in waiting, is there? His blue eyes searched her face. You are certain? This is what you want? She thought about Boston, about scrubbing floors until her hands bled, about the cold, lonely nights in her tiny room. Then she thought about this afternoon with 3 powerful men looking at her like she was something precious. I am certain. Jake's hand moved to cup her face. His palm was rough, warm. You have no idea what you do to us. What you do to me. Her breath caught. I think I might. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Soon, you will be my wife. Mine to protect. Mine to care for. Mine. The possessive word sent shivers through her. Yes. Yours. He leaned closer, his breath warm against her lips. She thought he would kiss her, wanted him to with an intensity that shocked her. But he stopped, his forehead resting against hers. Not yet. When I kiss you for the first time, it will be as my wife. He disappeared down the stairs before she could respond. The next morning, Jake announced they were going into town. Eleanor needs a proper dress for the wedding, and we need to see the preacher. Eleanor's heart leapt. So soon? Jake's eyes were intense. I see no reason to wait. Do you? She shook her head. They made the trip into Copper Ridge together, Eleanor riding with Jake again, her body pressed against his. She was more aware of him this time. The strength in his arms, the steady beat of his heart against her back. Cole and Tucker rode alongside them, creating an escort that made her feel protected, cherished. When they arrived in town, curious eyes followed them. The Hollister brothers were well known, and the presence of a woman with them created immediate interest. Eleanor lifted her chin and ignored the stares. The general store owner watched them enter with knowing eyes. Miss Hart, or should I say, soon to be Mrs. Hollister. Eleanor smiled. I need a dress suitable for a wedding. Something simple but nice. While Eleanor looked at fabrics, the brothers stood close, offering opinions. Cole preferred the blue fabric. Tucker thought the cream color made her skin glow. Jake simply watched her with an intensity that made her hands tremble. In the end, she chose a dress of soft dove gray with delicate white lace at the collar and cuffs. The woman promised to have it ready within 2 days. 2 days. In 2 days, she would be married. Next, they visited the preacher. Reverend Matthews was an older man with kind eyes. The Hollister boys. I had wondered when one of you would finally bring me a bride. Jake shook his hand firmly. We would like to be married in 2 days, Reverend. Saturday afternoon. The preacher's eyebrows rose. That is quite sudden, but Eleanor met his gaze steadily. I am certain, Reverend Matthews, this is what I want. He studied her, then nodded. Very well. Saturday at 2 o'clock. Jake glanced at his brothers. At the ranch, if you do not mind traveling out, we would like to keep it private. The preacher agreed. As they left the church, Tucker spoke up. There is something else we need to do. He gestured toward the land office. Jake frowned. What are you thinking? Tucker looked at Eleanor. She should have her name on the deed. Official. Legal. Eleanor's breath caught. What? Cole nodded. Tucker is right. This will be her home. Her ranch, too. Jake turned to face her fully. You agreed to marry me. To build a life here with us. That is enough. Tears pricked her eyes. No one had ever given her anything before. Tucker's quiet voice held certainty. You are family now. They walked into the land office together, and within an hour, Eleanor's name was added to the deed. Eleanor Hart, soon to be Hollister, co-owner of the Triple Bar Ranch. She stared at the document and felt something break open in her chest. She belonged somewhere. The ride back was quiet but comfortable. Eleanor leaned back against Jake, feeling safe in a way she never had before. When they arrived home, Jake stayed with her while his brothers went to work. As they sorted supplies, Jake spoke. I need you to understand something about my brothers and me. She looked up. What? His blue eyes were serious. We are closer than most siblings. I know. You said that before. He stepped closer. What I am trying to say is that I will be your husband. You will be my wife. But Cole and Tucker, They are part of this too. Part of us. Eleanor's heart began to pound. I do not understand. He ran a hand through his hair. When I see you with them, when I see the way they look at you and the way you respond, it does not make me angry. It makes me feel like this is right. Jake, what are you saying? That I am marrying you. Only you. But that my brothers will be here, will care for you, protect you. And if you want their attention, their affection, I will not stand in the way. Her mind spun. That is not proper. Jake's laugh was short. Nothing about this is proper, Eleanor. But I only care about what works for us. I want you to be happy. If that means all three of us caring for you, then that is what we will do. You do not have to say anything now. Just think about it. That night at dinner, the brothers were quieter than usual. Finally, Tucker broke the silence. We do not want you to feel pressured. About anything, Cole added. Whatever you are comfortable with, that is what we will do. Eleanor set down her fork. Can I ask you something? Do you all feel this? This pull between us? Jake answered first. Yes. From the moment I saw you. Cole leaned forward. Every moment since, it has only gotten stronger. Tucker's quiet voice held certainty. You are ours, Eleanor. All of ours. The possessive words filled her with a strange sense of rightness. I feel it too. With all three of you. I do not understand it, but I cannot deny it. Jake's eyes blazed. Then we do not deny it. We accept it. Cole reached across the table and took her hand. No one else needs to understand. Just us. Tucker added, we take care of our own, and you are ours now. Eleanor looked between the three identical faces. This was madness. Beautiful, impossible madness. All right, she whispered, then louder. All right. We do this together. Something shifted in that moment. An understanding reached. Eleanor was marrying Jake, but she belonged to all three of them, and they belonged to her. The next 2 days passed in a blur. Eleanor scrubbed the house until it shone. The brothers worked on repairs. Cole brought in wildflowers and Eleanor arranged them in mason jars. Tucker fixed the squeaky stair. Jake built proper shelves in the kitchen. Through it all, the awareness between them grew. Accidental touches that lingered. Heated looks across rooms. The air felt charged with anticipation. Saturday morning dawned clear and bright. Eleanor woke early, her stomach fluttering. Today she would become a wife. Today everything would change. She bathed carefully, washed her hair until it shone, pinned it up in a soft style. The dove gray dress fit perfectly. She studied herself in the mirror. She looked different than the frightened girl who had arrived just days ago. Her eyes were brighter, her cheeks flushed. She looked alive, happy. She looked like a woman in love. The thought stopped her. Was she in love? Already? But her heart knew. Yes, she was falling in love. With all three of them. A knock on her door. Eleanor? Jake's voice. The preacher is here. She took a deep breath and opened the door. Jake stood there wearing his best shirt. He had shaved and his hair was neatly combed. He looked devastatingly handsome. You are beautiful. His voice was rough. She felt tears prick her eyes. Thank you. He offered his arm. Ready? More than ready. They descended together. Cole and Tucker waited with Reverend Matthews. Both brothers wore their best clothes and looked at her with such open admiration that her breath caught. The preacher smiled. Shall we begin? They gathered in front of the fireplace. Eleanor barely heard the words. She was too focused on Jake standing beside her, his hand warm and strong, too aware of Cole and Tucker standing close. When the preacher asked if she took Jake to be her husband, her voice rang clear. I do. And when Jake said those same words, Eleanor felt something settle deep in her soul. This was right. This was where she belonged. You may kiss your bride. Jake turned to her, his blue eyes blazing. He cupped her face in both hands. Then he lowered his lips to hers. The kiss was soft at first, tentative, but then heat flooded through it. His mouth moved against hers, coaxing a response she gave willingly. Her hands fisted in his shirt. The world narrowed to just the two of them. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Eleanor saw Cole and Tucker watching with such intensity it made her flush. The preacher cleared his throat. "Congratulations, Mr. and Mrs. Hollister." He made his exit, clearly understanding this family needed privacy. The moment the door closed, the air changed, charged with possibility. Jake still held Eleanor close. "You are mine now. Legally, officially mine." She looked up at him. "Yes." Cole stepped closer. "But she is ours too." Tucker moved to her other side. "All of ours." Eleanor found herself surrounded. Her heart raced, but she felt no fear, only anticipation. Jake's hands tightened on her waist. "We will go slow. Follow your lead. Whatever you want." She looked between them. "I want all of you. I want this family we are building. I want to belong to you. All of you." Cole's hand cupped her cheek. "You already do." Tucker's fingers threaded through hers. "We are yours too. Every bit as much as you are ours." Jake leaned down and kissed her again, slower this time. Deeper. When he pulled back, Cole was there, his hand gently turning her face. "May I?" She nodded. Cole's kiss was different than Jake's. Softer, more tender, but no less intense. When Cole stepped back, Tucker was waiting. His kiss was quieter, more controlled, but she felt the restraint in it. Felt the depth of emotion he rarely showed. Eleanor was trembling when Tucker released her. 3 men. 3 very different kisses, and she wanted more of all of them. But Jake's hand on her shoulder grounded her. "Slow," he reminded her. "We have all the time in the world." She nodded, still breathless. "You are right. But I want you to know, I have never felt so wanted, so cherished." Cole smiled. "You better get used to it, Mrs. Hollister, because we plan to spoil you senseless," Tucker added. "Every single day." They celebrated with a feast they prepared together. Laughter filled the house, along with good food and family warmth. As evening fell, Eleanor felt nervousness creeping back. What happened now? Jake seemed to sense her anxiety. He took her hand. "Tonight, you sleep in your own room. Alone." Her eyes widened. "But we are married." "I know. And we will have plenty of time for everything that entails. But not tonight. Tonight you rest. You have had overwhelming days. You need time to process." Relief and disappointment warred in her. But Jake was right. She was exhausted. "All right." He kissed her forehead softly. "We are not going anywhere. We will be here tomorrow, and every day after." Cole hugged her goodnight. Tucker squeezed her hand. Then Eleanor climbed the stairs, her heart full. She changed and climbed into bed. But this time, she did not feel alone. She felt cherished, protected, loved. Through the walls, she could hear the brothers getting ready for bed. She smiled, thinking about her strange new family. It should not work. It was unconventional, improper. But it did work. It felt right. Eleanor drifted off to sleep with warmth in her heart. The weeks that followed were the happiest of Eleanor's life. She threw herself into making the ranch a real home. She planted a garden, sewed curtains, organized every corner. She cooked meals that tasted good, teaching the brothers her recipes. They were eager students, crowding into the kitchen to learn. The brothers taught her about the ranch. Cole showed her how to handle the horses. Tucker taught her about the cattle and reading the land. Jake involved her in all business decisions, valuing her input. But beyond the practical, something deeper developed. The bond between them grew stronger each day. Eleanor found herself falling more deeply in love with all 3 brothers. She loved Jake's strength and leadership, loved Cole's gentleness and humor, loved Tucker's quiet intensity, and they loved her back. She felt it in every look, every touch, every word. They surrounded her with affection, brought her wildflowers, fixed things before she noticed they were broken, sat with her on the porch in the evenings. One evening about a month after the wedding, they sat watching the sunset. Eleanor was nestled between Jake and Cole, Tucker leaning against the railing. "This is perfect," Eleanor said. "This moment, all of us together. This is everything I never knew I needed." Jake's arm tightened around her. "You have given us so much. You turned this ranch into a home. Turned us into a real family." Cole pressed a kiss to her head. "We were living before, but we were not truly alive." Tucker's voice held emotion. "You completed us." Eleanor felt tears. "You completed me, too. I was so lost. You gave me a family, a home, a purpose, a place to belong." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared. Eleanor thought about the frightened girl who had stepped off the stagecoach just a month ago. She barely recognized that person. That girl had been afraid, uncertain, desperate. This woman was confident and strong and happy. She had taken a wild chance coming west, had agreed to marry a stranger, and it had given her everything, not just security, but true belonging, true love, a real family. Jake stood and held out his hand. "Come. There is something we want to show you." Curious, Eleanor let him lead her toward the barn. Inside, lanterns cast warm golden light. And there, in the center, the brothers had built something. A beautiful wooden bench with intricate carvings, wildflowers and horses and cattle. On the back, carved carefully, were words. "Eleanor Hart Hollister. Our heart. Our home." Eleanor's hands flew to her mouth as tears spilled down her cheeks. "You made this? For me?" Cole smiled. "We have been working on it every spare moment," Tucker added. "You are the heart of this family, the heart of this home." Jake pulled her close. "We love you, all of us, completely." She looked between the three faces. "I love you too, all of you. I know it is strange and unconventional, but I do not care. This is my family. You are my family, and I have never been happier." They surrounded her then, creating a circle of strength and warmth. This strange, wonderful, perfect family they had created together. Eleanor Hart had come west hoping to escape poverty and loneliness. She had found so much more. She had found home. She had found love. She had found herself. And as she stood surrounded by three men who loved her completely, Eleanor knew with absolute certainty that this was exactly where she was meant to be. The ranch prospered under their combined efforts. Word spread about the quality of their horses and cattle. Other ranchers came to buy stock, noticing how well run the Triple Bar was. Some whispered about the unusual arrangement. But those whispers died when they saw how the brothers treated Eleanor with respect, how she glowed with happiness, how their ranch thrived. Eventually, even the most judgmental had to admit it was working. Eleanor threw herself into community too. She organized barn dances and quilting bees, bringing isolated families together. She helped new mail-order brides adjust to Western life. She became known for her kindness, always helping neighbors in need. The brothers supported her in everything, attending her events, even though they were more comfortable with cattle than crowds. They were so proud of the woman she had become. 1 year after her arrival, Eleanor stood on the porch and looked out over land that was now truly hers. The garden flourished. The house gleamed with her curtains and rugs. Chickens provided fresh eggs. Cattle dotted the hillsides. Horses ran in the corrals. And inside, 3 men who loved her were preparing dinner, using recipes she had taught them. Their voices drifted through the windows, teasing and laughing. Eleanor placed a hand over her belly, feeling the small swell there. A new life growing. A child who would be born into this wonderful family. She had not told the brothers yet, but it did not matter who the father was biologically. This child would belong to all of them, would be raised by 3 devoted fathers and 1 fiercely loving mother, would grow up surrounded by more love than Eleanor had ever dreamed possible. Jake appeared in the doorway. "Dinner is ready." He stopped. "What is wrong?" "Nothing." She turned with tears streaming. "Everything is perfect." "Jake, I am pregnant." He froze. "You are certain?" She nodded. "About 3 months along." For a moment he stared. Then a grin spread across his face. He let out a whoop and picked her up, spinning her around. Cole and Tucker burst through. "What is happening?" Jake set her down gently. "She is pregnant. We are going to have a baby." Cole's face split into a grin. Tucker's eyes filled with tears as he pulled Eleanor into a hug. All three brothers surrounded her, hands gentle on her stomach, faces filled with wonder. "Our baby," Tucker said softly. "Ours." "Yes," Eleanor agreed. "Ours. All of ours." That night they celebrated with joy. They talked about names and nurseries and changes a baby would bring. Eleanor felt deep rightness. This was her family. These three men were her husbands in every way that mattered. This child would bind them even more strongly. The months that followed were filled with preparation. The brothers converted the bedroom next to Eleanor's into a nursery, building a beautiful crib and shelves. Eleanor sewed tiny gowns and blankets. Cole carved wooden toys. Tucker built a rocking chair. Jake read every book on babies he could find. And through it all, they took care of Eleanor with devotion that sometimes overwhelmed her. They would not let her do heavy work. They brought her favorite foods. They rubbed her aching back and swollen feet. They talked to her growing belly, telling their child stories about the ranch and the life waiting. When Eleanor's time came on a crisp autumn morning, all three brothers were there. They held her hands, wiped her brow, encouraged her through every contraction. And when the midwife finally placed a tiny, perfect baby girl in Eleanor's arms, all four adults wept with joy. "She is beautiful," Cole whispered, his finger tracing the baby's tiny hand. "Perfect," Tucker agreed. Jake leaned down and kissed Eleanor's forehead. "You are amazing. Thank you for giving us this." Eleanor looked down at her daughter, at the tiny face and shock of dark hair. "What should we name her?" "You choose," Jake said. "You brought her into this world." Eleanor thought for a moment. "Grace. Her name is Grace, because she is grace personified. A gift we never expected but desperately needed. Grace Hollister." Cole tried the name. "I like it." Tucker nodded. "Perfect." They sat together as the sun rose, four adults surrounding the tiny new life they had created. A family in every sense that mattered. Unconventional, perhaps, but filled with more love than most traditional families ever knew. As Grace grew, she became the center of their universe. She had three fathers who doted on her endlessly. Jake taught her to ride. Cole sang her silly songs. Tucker carved her wooden animals. And Eleanor watched her daughter grow surrounded by love and security, never knowing the loneliness Eleanor herself had experienced. The ranch continued to thrive. Other families moved into the area. The wild frontier was becoming settled. On Grace's first birthday, they threw a party that brought together everyone in the territory. Eleanor stood on the porch, watching children run through the yard and adults laugh over food. Grace sat on a blanket surrounded by her three fathers, all making faces to make her laugh. "This is what I came west for," Eleanor thought. "Not just escape, but this. Family, community, belonging, love." She had taken a chance on a mail-order bride advertisement, and she had found everything she had never dared to dream of. Three men who loved her completely. A beautiful daughter. A home that was truly hers. A life filled with purpose and joy. The West had a way of changing people, of revealing who they truly were. Eleanor had arrived afraid and uncertain. She had become strong and confident. She had arrived alone. She had found a family. She had arrived with nothing. She had built everything. Jake came to stand beside her, slipping his arm around her waist. "Happy?" She leaned into him. "More than I ever thought possible." Cole joined them, Grace in his arms. She fell asleep right in the middle of the party. Tucker appeared with Eleanor's shawl. The four of them stood together, watching the sunset over their land, their home, their life. This was happiness. This moment. This family. This life they had built together. Nothing traditional or expected, but everything real and true and perfect. Years would pass. More children would come. The ranch would grow. Challenges would arise and be overcome together. But this moment, standing with her 3 husbands and their daughter, watching the sunset paint the sky, this was the moment Eleanor would remember when she was old. This was the moment she knew with certainty that coming west had been the best decision of her life. That taking a chance on 3 identical strangers had given her everything: a home, a family, a purpose, love beyond measure. And as the last light faded and stars began to appear, the 4 adults carried their sleeping daughter inside. Their home, their sanctuary, the place where 4 lost souls had found each other and built something beautiful. The Triple Bar Ranch stood strong on the frontier, a testament to unconventional love and the family that called it home. And inside, Eleanor Hart Hollister, the mail-order bride who had become so much more, tucked her daughter into bed and kissed each of her 3 husbands goodnight. Her heart full, her life complete, exactly where she was meant to be. The end was not an ending at all. It was a beginning. The beginning of a beautiful life filled with love and laughter, and the kind of happiness that comes from choosing to build something new, from having the courage to embrace the unconventional and create a family based not on rules but on genuine love and care. Eleanor had come west seeking escape. She had found home. She had come seeking security. She had found love. She had come alone. She had found family. And that was the best ending of all, because it was not really an ending. It was the beginning of forever. Eleanor looked at her sleeping daughter, then at the 3 men who had become her whole world: Jake with his protective strength, Cole with his gentle humor, Tucker with his quiet devotion. Together they created something she had never imagined possible, a love that multiplied instead of divided. The Triple Bar Ranch was more than just land and cattle now. It was a symbol of what happened when people had the courage to follow their hearts instead of convention, when they chose love over propriety. Eleanor had learned so much in her year on the ranch. That strength came in many forms. That family was not always defined by blood. That home was wherever you found people who truly saw you, valued you, loved you for exactly who you were. That taking risks could lead to the greatest rewards. As she stood watching Grace sleep peacefully in the crib her fathers had built with love, Eleanor felt gratitude wash over her. Gratitude for the advertisement that brought her west. Gratitude for 3 brothers who had seen past her fear. Gratitude for a community that accepted their unusual family. The future stretched before them, full of promise. More children to raise, the ranch to grow, a community to nurture, a love to deepen with each passing year. There would be challenges ahead, hard winters, difficult decisions, unexpected obstacles, but they would face everything together. That was their strength. They were bound by choice, by love freely given and joyfully received, by the daily decision to show up for each other. And that was worth more than all the gold in California, because what they had was real. What they had was true. What they had was theirs. She drifted to sleep with a smile and peace in her heart, surrounded by the sounds of her family, the creak of floorboards as Jake checked the locks, the soft murmur of Cole saying goodnight to Tucker, the gentle sounds of a home filled with love. Tomorrow would bring new adventures, new challenges, new joys. But tonight, Eleanor Hart Hollister was exactly where she was meant to be, surrounded by love, part of a family, home at last. She had come west as a desperate mail-order bride. She had become so much more: a wife, a mother, a partner, a beloved woman who had found not just one love, but 3. Not just a house, but a home. The stars shone bright over the Triple Bar Ranch that night, watching over 4 adults and 1 tiny child. A family born not of tradition but of choice, not of convention, but of love. That was the legacy Eleanor and her 3 husbands would leave, proof that love could not be contained by rules, that family came in all forms, that happiness could be found in unexpected places, and that sometimes taking the biggest risk led to the greatest reward. Eleanor Hart Hollister had found more than she had ever dreamed. She had found everything. The beginning of forever indeed.